Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Irish Wrestling Podcast. My name is Mark O'Brien and joined by today somebody who is very, very special for those of us who are intimately intrigued with the story of AEW. He's somebody who was a huge part of the AEW Jacksonville Daily's Place residency. He's a huge part of what was known back then as the Sammy Guevara blog. He's somebody who was one half of one of the most famous tag teams in AEW, as part of Too Fast, Too Fuego. Rest in peace, Too Fuego 2, rather. I'm joined by the one and the only Fuego del Sol. Fuego, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. What an intro. What an intro.
Yeah, a bit long-winded, could have been a bit more succinct, but what can you do? Listen, as I touched on in the intro, you kind of came into public zeitgeist and public awareness, particularly during that Jacksonville Daily's Place residency for AEW. But a lot of us who kind of were familiar with independent wrestling and particularly Impact Wrestling, you kind of came into the public consciousness back in 2017, your first Impact Wrestling appearance against the then DJZ, now WWE's Walking Wild, against Trevor Lee, formerly known as Cameron Grimes, as well as Malico. You've had an interesting road building from that 2014 debut in independent wrestling space all the way to AEW. What was that initial 6 year run like?
It was great. I feel like you really have to grind and hone your craft early on. And all I wanted was to get better each year. And I feel like I write all of my matches down and I wanted to be in the ring with names, like big names that had been on TV or had, were legends of the past or that were the upcoming indie guys that were going to go on to be on television. So I just knew iron sharpens iron. I wanted to be in there with people better than me. And I got to have that every year. I would have more matches than the year prior, and I would wrestle more names than the year prior, and it would just stack up more and more. And then I'd have little things happen for me. I'd get, to a big indie in Texas, or I'd get to wrestle in Mexico, or then I would, have those opportunities at Impact, and little things like that would just stack up where I knew I was on the right path to success. I never knew when I was going to get signed or even how I was going to get signed, but I always knew in my head I'm going to get signed, and right now I'm on the right track to getting there.
Yeah, and listen, work ethic is a huge part of that, and kind of work ethic leads to momentum. So during that time, you've had appearances at the Collision in Oklahoma show for Impact Wrestling. Years later, then you're appearing at Victory Road in 2019 in a tag match against the now Ethan Page, signed with NXT, one of the hottest wrestlers in the world, and Josh Alexander, one of the most technically respected wrestlers in the world. And then just before the pandemic, you even appear on Monday Night Raw in a very brief stint, as KJ Orso versus Eric Rowan. What was that like, being getting to feature on Monday Night Raw, the live flagship show for WWE?
See, everybody keeps, I think this is wrong on Wikipedia. Everybody keeps saying this is me, and I don't
Okay.
believe this is me. However, I know this guy. I know this guy very well, right? He's a real schlub, a real jobber of a kid. But he kept telling me how much it meant to him just to be on that stage. It was in Oklahoma City. Uh, I was backstage during this time. I remember all of this very well. But I think it was just eye-opening because if you look back at it now,
Mm.
kid just looks like a small slub, real slubby jobber type. However, Vince McMahon was specifically the one who wanted him to do the run up the ramp and scream, and he made him do it like 3 or 4 times. So it was just a funny experience overall. I remember Devon Dudley was the agent for that, and just picking his brain and asking him about, hey, what is going on with this cage thing and Rowan, and just seeing his reaction to not having a clue what was going on and why this was happening, but doing what the boss wants to do. It was a very funny experience. But just to say I got to message a bunch of people and say, hey, KJ Orso's going to be on television tonight. You should watch Raw. And that was always a cool experience.
Well, I've no doubt that KJ Orso's filled out more, and if he was to face Eric Rowan in a follow-up match nowadays, it'd be a very different result. But that's very, very cool, getting that exposure, getting to learn from the likes of Devon Dudley, getting handpicked by Vince McMahon for that segment on live television. That's a really, really cool piece. But again, it was a kind of a funny time in the world. Obviously, we were on the cusp of a global pandemic. Not for a lot of people, that was a terrible time in the world, and I'm sure it was for you in many ways as well. But also professionally, you then got to thrive. You got to be a huge part of the AEW Jacksonville residency. Although a lot of your kind of featured matches were based on kind of AEW Dark Elevation. It didn't really matter at that time because a lot of us were just watching wrestling on various different platforms around the world. It wasn't necessarily television based. What was that like, having that opportunity and getting to feature so regularly, weekly basis or near weekly basis on AEW television?
It was such a unique and interesting time in my life. I think, I first had my first match in May of 2020. And then I went on to have a second match in AEW in June, I want to say. And then finally, I had a third one in August.
Yeah.
Or, yes, maybe September. It might have been the beginning of September. But I just remember that third one, I finally got to uh, wrestle. I should say, my fourth one, I should say. I finally got to come back. Those were like sparing events. It wasn't like a weekly thing. And
Yeah.
eventually, I wrestled Ricky Starks, and the match did not go the way I wanted it to go. It was okay, but I was very down about the match. But luckily, we were filming something for BTE. Sammy wanted to get me in this Gator golf tournament they were doing for the
Yeah.
BTE
Yeah.
title, and because I won the match that he let me win, he basically threw it. So they were gonna book me another week, and in that extra week, because they brought me in again, I then did a bit with QT on Sammy's vlog and a bit with Cody Rhodes as well. And both of those guys took a liking to me. And if it wasn't been for that Gator Golf tournament, I would never came back that next week to then get in good with those two guys. Getting in good with QT, who booked the extras at that time, was huge because he was like, "Hey, as long as you can get here to Jacksonville, you're booked every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we come here to film tapings, you'll be here." And so literally from October all the way until they went back on the road in July of 2021. I was there at every taping, and that was awesome. But I remember there was just such an angst and like a desire to get signed and trying to figure out ways to get signed and how I was going to do it. And like the closer we got to July, the
Mhm.
more I feel like the more anxious I became about the uh potential of getting signed or not getting signed.
Yeah.
But during that whole stint, getting to be a part of the vlog and developing the friendship with the vlog crew and getting to be basically mentored by Cody Rhodes and work with QT and Dustin Rhodes and like doing all these things were just phenomenal. Like I can't they say you don't know you're in the good old days until they're over. And that was the good old days. Like me and Sammy and the vlog crew keep a group chat. And we still, we talking all the time. We're all really, really good friends. And we talk about it all the time. We're sending old videos or old links that we forgot about. We're sending photos to each other of like, man, we got to get together again and do something because that time was special. There was some type of magic that we captured in that pandemic time, in that vlog. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to replicate it, but I hope we can.
Yeah, and it's funny, like you're not the only person who's kind of referenced that kind of almost golden age of AEW, not just necessarily on television, but across the different vlogs, across BTE. I've spoken to other talents who do kind of lovingly and longingly reflect on that period, who'd love to go kind of go back to that. Listen, those are the good old days. As I say, you don't know you're in them till they're gone as such. But like during that time, as I said, you're kind of building up to that July end date when things are going back in the road. But you had this very cool losing streak going on at the same time before ultimately snapping that 34-0 before then winning a tag team match alongside Marco Stunt, beating Ryzen and Baron Black. What was it like to have, even though it's a losing streak? I know the likes of Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins at the time have done that in WWE. It does. A lot of people will say like you can't lose a match in wrestling. You'll never get over that way. But you had a fan base and a groundswell of fans all across the world because everybody's in their bedrooms worldwide watching this and kind of getting behind you. What was that like knowing that on a weekly basis, that kind of momentum or that pressure, that stress is building towards finally getting that win?
Yeah, it's funny because I knew unless I was going to be signed, I was never going to win a match. And
Yeah.
so my whole mindset was you don't have to go over to get over. Can I
Mm.
find a way to get over without winning matches? And I never did. And like part of the whole fun of all this was just trying to pop Cody Rhodes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He randomly calls me the master of the tornado DDT. And so then in my match with Scorpio Sky, I tease like I'm going to hit it and I don't hit it. And then
Yeah.
next week I tease it again. Right. And then like I remember MJF come up to me one time and he was like, "Man, all of the boys at Gorilla," and Cody was just like anxious for you to hit this DDT. You kept teasing it and never has. I can't hit it and lose. What are
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
doing here? You know? And so we just slowly built that. And I think that showed a little bit of smarts on my end just because people were like, he gets it. The anticipation for when he actually does it is going to be huge. Um, and but I also knew, like I said, that unless I was getting signed, I was never gonna win. But Sam, once we got really close to the end of the run in Jacksonville, he was like, "Man, I really want you to get a win." I kind of have been pitching it to Tony, and I'm like, that's a cool little consolation thing, but I want a contract. I really could care less about the win.
Yeah.
And so like the whole day, I was kind of mad about it. It was the last Jacksonville taping. I'd already pretty much, exhausted all sources of like, hey, is this any chance I'm gonna get signed? And pretty much the answer was no, without telling me no. It was like, keep doing what you're doing, but not right now. That's basically what they kept telling me. Um, and so I was really pissed off. I was like, man, I don't want this pity win.
Yeah.
It's like this is like a pretty much a goodbye win. It's like, hey, here's your fun little win. We're gonna put a bow on this whole pandemic thing, and it kind of really upset me in a lot of ways. But once the match inched closer, me and Marco got together and put a bunch of ideas together. Jerry Lynn was our agent, so Jerry had some great ideas. We went out there, we did it, and it felt like a really cool moment. And then what I didn't know is that Sammy got the whole vlog crew, who really wasn't ever seen together on screen. He convinced Tony to let them all come out, and so they lifted us up and did a whole thing. Dustin came down. It was a really cool photo. There's some great photos of us all together, and that's one of the only photos of us all together in the ring like that. And I'm very thankful for that. Overall. And luckily, it did lead to a contract, so now I can
Yeah.
look back on it much more fonder than I originally were it was. But
Yeah.
overall, in the moment, it was a roller coaster of emotions that whole pandemic time and leading up to that last match.
Yeah, I remember vividly at the time thinking like, "Oh, this is a lovely send off for him as they kind of go back in the road." And like, it's a shame he's not getting signed. But like, literally a month later, you're back in the same place, and then you're facing Miro, and then you get that contract offer, and Sammy or Fuego Sol is all elite, and it's like, well, why didn't we do this a month ago? And like, I understand it kind of fit in very well with the Miro storyline and what happened with Sammy later, but it was just like a month after going back on the road or back in Daly's place, and suddenly now it happens. Now that triggers, like, well, just watching from afar, it didn't necessarily make sense at the time, but listen, it all fed into that kind of overarching story, building into what working with Miro. How was that working with Miro? Obviously, building towards Sammy's big moment of catching the TNT Championship. You did your car versus championship piece with him as well, and that was a really cool angle, and kind of being Sammy's friend and kind of building your own popularity and awareness on mainstream AEW television.
Yeah, it was fun. It was different.
Yeah.
Miro is the man. Like Miro is great. He's fantastic. He's a mammoth of a man. He's huge. He's strong as hell. Uh, he clubbed me out of the air so hard in one of our matches that it was just like it was brutal. They replayed a club, and it's rare to replay just a. I went off the middle rope and turned around, and he just double axe handled me in the chest, and it just looked like a sledgehammer had hit me, and it's one of the fondest memories. He was so cool putting everything together with, and he wanted to maximize every moment that we had, which was great. I'd never wrestled a television match before that Miro match. 40 something matches all on dark. So this is really my first time to really showcase myself on television in the first one. And,
Yeah.
it led to me getting signed, which was great. And I felt like I think part of that reason for that is that I think Tony needed to see that this wasn't just a Jacksonville
Yeah.
thing. Like we went on the road, we did Miami first, and then we went to Texas for two shows, and like
Mm.
slowly but surely the Fuego chants were just out of control. Like I wrestled Luchasaurus in a 2 minute squash match, and they were chanting my name over Luchasaurus' name, and so I think he kind of opened his eyes to like, oh my God, we
Yeah.
gotta probably do something with this kid. And luckily. I was so frustrated too over that, 9 month period in Jacksonville. And I watched so many guys come in and get signed, basically before me and secretly, they would come in, have a really good match, have a really good series of matches, and they would get a contract, whether it be the all elite graphic type contract or the
Mm.
smaller, like per appearance contract. And it was just like, what do I need to do? And I was really bitter about it. But the fact they eventually still did it on TV, it almost made a moment out of it where it made it bigger than I ever anticipated. So I would gladly do it all over again and go through all of that roller coaster ride of anxiety and emotion just to get to that moment to where they sign me on television because not a lot of people don't ever get that. And so I'm very thankful for that. And I'm very thankful for Miro making such a cool match for it to be only 3 4 minutes at most. It was very cool and it was very it was a overwhelming emotional ride. We took the fans on and we brought them into the story. We drew them in. We made them believe that I could win for half a second before that, and then to follow it up with that match, that second match. This is my first main event, first
Mm.
television main event against Miro. We put the card on the line, and like I didn't love the stipulation, but it gave me a bunch of TV time, and it kind of established more of mine and Sammy's friendship, and it was going to snowball into him winning the belt, and I got to be a part of that night as well. So super cool moment. Probably the peak of what I did in AEW was that. I got to have a few more small things, but really when it comes to TV, like that was the most consecutive weeks of television time I got.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of indicative of a lot of AEW. A lot of people can seem to kind of cycle in and out of programs. You might be on featuring for 6 to 9 weeks at a time, then suddenly you kind of get cycled out and put onto different things or put on the back burner and brought back a bit later. But I was researching in the last couple of days. I was amazed to find out you're on you'd been signed for a 4 year contract, but it was a 1 year rolling contract more than anything, which is quite common, particularly in this part of the world, say in like in soccer. Player or manager might sign a 1 year rolling contract that can keep going on and on and on. But in your case, it was on I suppose, the volition of the employer of AEW whether that actually gets rolled. What was that like? And like obviously year to year, you moved on in 2023, but like year to year, that must cause a huge amount of like personal stress more than anything. Like, I mean, you've signed a 4 year contract, but at the same time, it's going to be up for debate every year. Like, what was that like on a personal level? Like, okay, well, this is a lot of what I've hoped for, and then there's going to be increase in salary if I get signed for another year. But I suppose in the months leading up to August every single year, it must have been quite stressful.
Yeah, it's, I get signed in August of 21,
Hmm.
and we do the Miro feud pretty much all the way through almost until October. Then I'm basically off TV until until December where I wrestle Hook in a one-off match.
Yeah.
And then I'm off TV probably another 2 months until about February, maybe even longer than that, where I do a match against Malachi Black and House of Black, and they
Hmm.
want to wrestle me a couple more times. So I got to do, a little small feud with them, and that probably led all the way up until the Double or Nothing pay-per-view in like May. And
Hmm.
like, but I remember I didn't get brought to Vegas for that, and I was like, ooh, this is like, and Cody had left right before that feud started.
Yeah.
Cody had made sure I was there every single week. But once he left, they started leaving me at home during TV tapings more and more often. It was like I was only getting brought in for the AEW Dark tapings in Orlando every six
Hmm.
weeks. And so it was like, okay, now, but in May, even though I wasn't brought to Las Vegas, I got the email saying, hey, we're rolling your contract over for another year, which was great. I was like,
Hmm.
perfect. So that gave me relief about,
Hmm.
okay, I'm sitting at home, but at least I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
I got brought in for another quick little TV match that lasted 3 minutes against the Acclaim and the Guns in like the summer, maybe
Hmm.
July. And then I literally was pretty much left off TV until damn near October. Yeah, and I wrestled two quick matches against Lee Moriarty on Rampage and then Luchasaurus on Dynamite. And so pretty much did nothing but except AEW Dark matches from all that year after that Malachi feud.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I was left at home again, but I had talked to Tony Khan about going to DDT in Japan and doing something there. So at least it would like keep me
Hmm.
doing something. And I started booking a lot more indie dates as this is at the end of 2022. And then in February of 2023, I drive all the way down to Laredo, Texas. They didn't fly me or anything. I just tried to go get on the show. I wrestled Juice Robinson, which
Hmm.
which ended up being my last match there, because in February I broke my foot,
Yeah.
and that really scared me because I thought, oh man, at least if I would have kept the momentum up of wrestling and they would have released me in July or August 2023, I would have felt comfortable of like, okay, I've been wrestling more indies. I was kind of preparing myself for this. But after the injury, it was such a mental block for me. And such a hard road to recover that but I also thought maybe I was lucky. Maybe the injury is going to make them roll me over for 1 more year. At least they add 4 more months of time on. And I remember finally getting cleared. I remember messaging the doctor that I was cleared. And 2 days later, this is right at the beginning of June. Yeah, I got the call saying, hey, we're not going to renew your contract from one of the AEW lawyers as well as Tony Schiavone. And they gave me the news. And I just remember being devastated. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall beforehand because I just was not being used at all,
Hmm.
especially after Cody left.
Yeah.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, no, this is hugely insightful, and I really do appreciate you being so transparent. Like, so during that time, like, I mean, there's a lot of people in a lot of lines of work across the world, like, who would love to be paid to sit at home. Like, and I mean, there's a lot of it in high performance sport, like, or performance arts. People want to perform their art. They want to do what they're trained in. They want to do what they love as well. It's like it's not everybody will be able to empathize with that, but I completely, I hugely admire what you're doing there in terms of you're approaching your boss, you're looking to go travel to Japan and perform in different arenas, you're looking to improve yourself by doing independent shows on a weekly basis, but at the same time, you're also beholden, you can't really commit to everything because you're beholden to them in case they call you, say, we need you tomorrow. So what was the lines
Yeah,
of, sorry,
go ahead, Kentucky. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, what were the lines of communication around at that time? Like, unless you approached them, were you kind of just left to your own devices?
Pretty much, pretty much. I mean, like Cody was kind of my intermediary for any type of creative or ideas. And so when he left, besides QT, who really wasn't at the top of the totem pole yet, it was very difficult to figure out what I was going to be doing.
Mm,
And as much as people would like to sit at home and just make their paycheck, I am a slave to my ambition, my own ambition, and for better or for worse. And I feel like there's a fine line between ambition and annoyance.
mm,
And I feel like at times maybe I annoyed TK because I was so ambitious and wanted to do things so much. I tried not to annoy him and I tried to be conscious of his time. But there's also a point where I would hope that he respects my time as well and understands, where I'm coming from and what I desire.
mm,
And even like I'm just I'm a workaholic. I pride myself on how hard I will work. If you tell me I need to change something or fix something, I will fix it. Tell me you want a new gimmick, I'll change the gimmick up. Tell me you want me to gain weight, I'll gain weight. Tell me you want to turn me heel, I'll turn like whatever you want. What do I need to do
mm,
to pique your interest into booking me more? What
yeah.
idea can I pitch to you that maybe piques your interest? At least let's try and work on this a little bit. Um, but I hate getting told, just keep doing what you're doing. And that felt
Mm,
like that's all I ever got told in AEW. What I was doing was so great, I would be on television. I would be doing something more. You would at least, like, I would watch Griff Garrison, who's one of my good friends, get told, hey, you guys are going to be losing. You're going to be off TV for few weeks, but don't worry. I got long-term plans for you. Don't worry. I got long-term. I never once got told you got long-term plans for me. And so it's very funny looking back on it now and knowing what I know now, I probably would have kept my mouth shut and just kept the paycheck a little longer. Um, because I was so young. But at the time, hindsight is 2020.
mm,
Now being without that money and getting used to the lifestyle, you think, oh my God, I'm gonna get released like life is fine for me afterwards. But I could have sat there and collected that paycheck for even if the end of 4 years, it would have been this year, right? It would have been 2025. And if I got released in July of this year at 29 years old, best shape of my life, good money saved up, I could still be doing what I'm doing now. I could still probably hit the road and maybe not at some of the indies I'm at, but pretty much most of the indies I'm at. I probably could make something happen. So I could have just sat around and let it roll over, but a part of me, for better or for worse, is just I'm a slave to my own ambition.
mm. I mean, approaching your boss to asking them to give you more work, like in any other line of work. Do you mean any?
It's
Do you know what I mean?
insane. It's asinine.
Yeah, like I mean, and who's going to get annoyed by that? And like annoying your boss for all the reasons you could possibly annoy, and I've no doubt you've got a million other people who are annoying him for significantly less trivial reasons, or annoying him for petty or small reasons, trying to get more money out of him or trying to manipulate him in some shape or fashion. But if you're honestly and earnestly approaching him, saying, "Listen, I just want to work. I'll do X, Y, Z, whatever you want." You may have annoyed him to the point of just kind of constantly go to him, but I'm sure he respects that no matter what. But also at the same time, you say that you left in 22 and 23, and you touched on you're in the best shape of your life now in 2025. That motivation of being kind of fobbed off by your boss, I'm sure had played a big impact in terms of where you are now. But you've touched on him a few times here now throughout this call, and I reference it as kind of my preamble, putting him out, putting you over. Cody Rhodes is, but you did your brilliant stuff with him as part of your Too Fast Too Fuego, and he'd done the kind of character of Fuego too, almost in that kind of pantomime gimmick. And you talked about like the Master of the Tornado DDT. Like, how did that all come about? Because for a while, when that kind of, particularly on AEW Dark, for those of us who are watching on YouTube and religiously every week, that was one of my favorite pieces in AEW, and that kind of, I wouldn't call it shithousery, but like pantomime, like over the top, like him getting to kind of clap along with the crowd and just do small things and the constant referencing to the tornado DDT. Like I absolutely loved every second of it. Like what was that like and how did it come about?
Yeah, talk about a crazy thing, but I gotta correct you first, okay?
Okay.
We've seen Cody Rhodes
Sorry.
and Fuego 2 in the same room together. Everybody loves to talk about how they think they're the same person, but they're not. However, Cody Rhodes is the one who gave my son an opportunity. He agented all the matches. He's the one who was like, "Hey,
Mm,
why don't we give your kid a shot and bring him into AEW?" Right? So very hands-on, very particular about this. And I remember for the longest time, like even before I got signed, Sammy kept telling me, yeah, Cody says he wants to team with you one match, just to have some fun. And I'm like, man, that would be awesome. He's one of the top guys. Please team with me. I'm not signed here. And so eventually I remember he was like, do you got another mask? I was like, of course I got another mask. He's like, I got an idea. And then slowly but surely, Fuego 2 started popping up on the vlog little by little, and I would do bits where people would call him Cody Rhodes, and I'd slap them, or I'd admonish them or get mad and angry, and it slowly started working. And out of nowhere, I just remember in AEW Dark Taping, there was a graphic saying, "This weekend, too fast, too fuego." And I was like, I had no clue that was going to be our name. I had no clue this was going to be the weekend we debuted. I just remember Cody kind of overhauled everything and made it all happen. And I remember that first match just being so shocked the whole time. Because the whole time things are happening and he's like doing his own thing. He's throwing up the two. We're getting the two and one thing over. And then out of nowhere, we win the match and he jumps into the crowd. So I jumped up there with him. And I'm like, what is going on here? This was like such a insane, because like it was a roller coaster ride because I had no clue what was going on. I had no clue what Fuego 2 was going to do next. And I think at the time Cody was getting booed on television. So to see,
yeah.
his project Fuego 2 to get cheered,
Yeah.
what a contrast and what a weird thing in pro wrestling. And that's only in pro wrestling can you get something like that to work. Uh I think it's indicative of how much fans took to it, because we really only had three matches together. Overall, it was like a 6 month period. We might have started it in June. I mean, not even June, probably September, October, and he was gone by January. So, like, for people to point it out and bring it up, and for all the love and fanfare it gets online, uh, and for it to only last 6 months is crazy. There was only four matches, and one of them didn't even air. So there's a hidden AEW Dark Fuego 2 match out there that never even aired on. Unfortunately, he wasn't signed to
Mm.
AEW, and when Cody left, management didn't see it right to continue using him, and it sent him into a deep dark depression. And he was then presumed went missing and presumed dead, like you said, like you mentioned earlier. Um, so very sad. What a whirlwind of a time. It was over before it really even got started, I felt.
Yeah, and listen, that was it was a time of AEW, that 2021 period where like that I don't think any other promotion in the world could that have worked as well as it did. Having that contrast of Cody getting booed and then Fuego 2 getting cheered as you mentioned.
It's
But I'm
it's
also
so
glad.
funny because Cody was like, man, he's like, part of the whole reason this started is because Cody's cutting all these promos on television. He's like, I'm getting out of shape. I need to wrestle more. I need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do something. So it kind of just all led into each other.
No, and listen, I'm delighted for him off the success he's had off the back of that. Then, like obviously, immediately following that, then debuting at WrestleMania 30, I was lucky enough to be there as a fan. But there's also been a number of different AEW talents, like from that, who kind of debuted in AEW during that Jacksonville residency time, be it Brian Pillman Jr., Ricky Starks, Jake Cargill, and a number of other talents. Have you kept in contact rather with the likes of Cody or anybody else following their kind of newfound success within AEW or WWE rather?
Oh yeah, me and Cody and Sammy have a group chat together, and we talk about life and our kids. We're all fathers, and we talk about anything that he's doing. I love he'll go on podcasts that are outside the wrestling zeitgeist. He'll go on comedians podcast or a famous athletes podcast, and he does such a good job at eloquently showing the mass and casual audiences that maybe only know about WWE, casually, that he does such a great job representing it and enticing people to maybe check it out. And
Yeah.
so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about his appearance on Fallon or any of these, and every once in a while he sneaks in something about AEW. You can tell it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the son that like left, is like the kid that he had that is no longer, there's a strained relationship between a father and a son, and I can just tell how upset he is that things didn't go right in AEW. However, he's extremely it's almost like he's like pissed off to show them, yep, look what y'all messed up. Look what y'all missed out on. He's clearly motivated not only to prove himself right, but to prove everybody wrong that, maybe doubted him or didn't book him correctly.
Yeah, and I said I was at WrestleMania 38 and I lost my mind when he debuted in WWE. And that's I'm saying that as a primarily an AEW fan. But like I've no doubt whatever reasoning for him to kind of for departing at the time will come out eventually. But I couldn't be happier to see him proving everybody wrong, as you say. But listen, that was a really, really cool part of his career, but also not just his career, your career more importantly. Um, you've also touched on recently, just on the topic of WWE, that you think you've mentioned on social media that you believe you're on the cusp of possibly being signed by WWE and potentially debuting in NXT. You're thinking the momentum you've built up, be it through the independents. Have you any contact personally from anybody in WWE in terms of, I don't know, potentially appearing or tryouts or anything to that effect?
Oh man, so there was like a almost a year period where me and Regal stayed in contact, and he
Mm,
basically told me, "Hey, you're next on the list of tryouts." But from like September of 2023 to pretty much, I want to say at least almost a year today, September 2024 to September, they did no independent wrestling tryouts, none.
okay. Yeah.
And so, uh, I guess they were slowly gearing up for this WWE ID
Hmm.
program, and which I wasn't privy to. Um, and Gabe Sapolsky, who helps run all of that, me and him would stay in contact. And I would do a bunch of like backstage work with WWE. I did multiple Raws and SmackDowns over the course of 2023 and 2024. Like I was backstage, I got to hang out with Cody on his bus, and we would talk and reminisce. I got to train with Regal a little bit, and we would talk and reminisce. And I didn't think it was possible, but I was hoping for was an opportunity. Like, give me a tryout, and I'll kill it
Mm,
in the tryout and make something happen. And things didn't happen until Ring of Honor and AEW called me back to do some shows in
hmm
Texas in 2024.
hmm
And so when I did that, I think it kind of killed off any momentum of probably doing anything with WWE because I think they thought AEW was going to re-sign me. Uh, and I kind of, after how well that run went in Texas with Ring of Honor and AEW, I thought AEW was going to re-sign me as
hmm
well. And so I kind of put all my eggs in that basket and kind of stopped communicating as much because I thought it would be a clash
Yeah, yeah.
of interest. Uh, and then I really didn't do anything again with AEW until December, where I did some
Mm,
shows in Kansas City and St. Louis. And then earlier this month, I did two matches, one of them that hasn't even aired yet.
yeah.
So there'll be one that airs in a couple weeks, I would assume. So yeah, there's really nothing left on that. I still can stay in contact with the Gabe Sapolsky, but nothing set in stone.
Well, listen, with the WEID program, you've seen the likes of Jack Cartwheel, who appeared regularly for Ring of Honor and AEW last year in 2024. You've got the likes of Timothy Thatcher, Kylie Ray's obviously been signed by AEW. So I wouldn't preclude yourself based on a couple of independents while not signed with AEW. I personally think off the back of your kind of GCW run in particular, like obviously you're facing, you've managed to get yourself in a position from leaving AEW to within a year and a half challenging for the GCW World Title against Mance Warner at Ransom last year. What kind of was there a sense of fulfillment in terms of like, okay, I've backed myself now a year after being released, or 18 months roughly after being released. Now I'm challenging for a world title and probably the biggest independent promotion in the world.
Yeah, even more so than the title, I think just becoming a GCW regular is so
Mm,
difficult, right? I think GCW is they pride themselves on being that alternative, to being like the modern day ECW, and it shouldn't be easy for a former TV guy who really never had a big indie run or never had a big run on TV to come in. I think I had to earn the respect of the talent, earn the respect of the promoter, and
mm,
most importantly, earn the respect of the GCW audience, right? If I have this goofy AEW, job guy persona and I come in wanting to compete with some of the best independent talent in the world, I
mm,
better be able to go. And so I just wanted to prove slowly, one match at a time, that hey, I want to be here. I'm not just using this or piggybacking off of this. I want to show everybody how
mm.
good I am in the ring because I never felt like I had the time to do that in AEW in-ring wise. Everyone knows I'm entertaining. Everyone knows I can make you laugh or have a fun little, 4, 5, 6 minute match. But give me 15, 20 minutes and let me show you how good I can be bell to bell. And I think GCW has given me so many, opportunities to do just that. And I'm very thankful for that. And so to wrestle some of their top talent
Mm.
has been not only a pleasure, but like almost a stamp of approval by all the
Mm.
people. I could have easily gotten thrown in that battle royal
Mhm.
at the Hammerstein Ballroom last month in January,
Yeah.
but because I'm one of their guys, they gave me an actual match, and so I've just been uh, so grateful to achieve one of those goals of becoming a GCW regular and earning my stripes one match at a time.
Yeah, and say that you are a GCW regular, and for those of us who kind of follow GCW religiously on Triller TV, like you're not just one of these regulars that appears once a week or once a month. You this coming weekend, you've got three different appearances in three different cities. You've got San Diego Friday, then you've got LA on Saturday, and you've got Phoenix on Sunday. If my American geography is correct, but
You're
you've got
correct.
three, yeah, exactly, but you've got appearances all across the United States as well. If anybody follows you on social media, so you're working your arse off for the minute. I personally hope to see you potentially doing more independence in this part of the world across Europe. Places like France, I think you do unbelievably well, like APC, BZW Wrestling here in Ireland, OTT. I think you take like a duck to water. But like, I don't. Before we kind of finish up, I just want to ask you something. You tweeted out something incredibly interesting today. You said things have never been more certain and uncertain in your wrestling career as they are right now. It's do or die time. What it is specifically? Is there anything you can reveal to us about that, or was that as a general kind of hypothesis putting out into the world at the time?
No, it was intentionally a little vague.
Mm,
With this Ring of Honor and AEW stuff that I recently just did, I don't want to get into the weeds of what
mm,
happened backstage, but there was something that happened backstage that kind of, for better or for worse, pointed me in the direction of where I needed to go,
okay,
and what I needed to do.
okay,
And I have 3 kids, and life is difficult right now. Like
okay,
career wise, it's good, but money and financial wise, and like depending on what I need to do to take care of my family the way I want to take care of my family, it really is do or die right now. And I set a bunch of goals for myself at the start of the year, and really not even goals for the year. It's really just before WrestleMania weekend. So if I don't achieve some things or do some things that I feel are necessary to take care of my family by WrestleMania weekend, there's gonna need to be a giant change in my life
mhm.
uh, to make things work. And so that's basically what I'm getting at without revealing too much.
No problem. Listen, thank you very much for being so transparent in that. And listen, I've hugely appreciated your time and your transparency and your good humor as well. Across all our social media platforms, Body Slam, Irish Wrestling Entertainment, I'll be pushing every single one of your matches upcoming, all various different projects, pushing short stories, everything we can, because we're huge fans of you, and I can't wait to see what the rest of 2025 has. I touched on it earlier. You've got GCW shows coming up. You've also got a big six-man tag in Las Vegas over WrestleMania weekend. You're tagging with your former AEW colleagues, Alan Angels now in TNA. You've got Wardlow, who's technically on the shelf in AEW, be it injury or otherwise. You're against Jordan Cruz, Sonico, and Wicked Willett. Do you have any other big matches on the horizon or other social media based appearances or projects that fans can check you out on?
Yes, yes. I think, follow me on social media is the best way to keep up with me. I still see people all the time like, do you still wrestle after AEW? Not only do I wrestle everywhere. I feel like that's the blessing and the curse of AEW, especially because I wrestle. So many people know the name Fuego del Sol, but don't know what I'm capable of in the ring and don't know how often I'm still wrestling. If they don't follow Indies or GCW, I feel like follow me on social media, on my Facebook page, my Instagram page, my X page, to see my upcoming dates because I am everywhere. WrestleMania weekend is huge. I already have 5 matches so far, and I will be a part of a GCW show as well. So just keep your eye on that announcement. That's gonna be big, as well as like I got these GCW days coming up. A show in Kansas City on March 14th, GCW in Atlantic City on the 15th and 16th. I'll be in Montana for Flashback Pro Wrestling on March 22nd, Houston, Texas, March 27th, Colorado, March 29th, back to GCW in St. Louis on March 30th, and then we're ramping up for a bunch of things in WrestleMania weekend. So if you follow me on socials, you can see all the different things I got coming up and loaded up. But we got 3 huge GCW matches this weekend, and things are going to be a story's going to be kicking off this weekend for GCW that will continue pretty much all the way to Mania weekend. So just a small tease for that.
I can't wait to watch that now as a GCW fan. But listen, I want to firstly thank you so much for your time, your transparency, your good nature again. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for all you've done in the wrestling space, and thank you for all you continue to do. Like, I can't wait to see what happens in 2025 for you. As the master of the Tornado DTD, I want to thank you so much, and I wish you the very, very best in the future.
Thank you so much. It was a very fun interview. I appreciate all the questions.
No problem.